Hope Cook here with Dermcast.live. Today we have Archana Sangha. Welcome, Archana.
Thanks, Hope. Great to be here with you.
Archana was the past president of SDPA in 2020. And Archana, we're here to hear about your journey from being a SDPA member, rising through the leadership to president, and just about your journey.
Sure, Hope. So I got plugged into SDPA very early on when I was in PA school. I had an amazing mentor who taught our dermatology module in PA school, who's also a past president, Abby Jacobson.
Oh, yeah.
And so what fascinated me about dermatology is really the cutaneous manifestations of systemic diseases. And that's what incited really my interest in derm, and I sought out a dermatology rotation. Abby was a huge proponent in being involved in whatever organization is supportive of PAs, and through her mentorship, I sought out SDPA, became a member, and then decided I wanted to become more involved, got plugged into the membership committee, and really found the SDPA leadership community to be really an extension of a family. They were so welcoming. They really taught me what it meant to be part of a professional organization. And so I really, really enjoyed those beginning years of SDPA leadership.
Yeah. So as a new member of SDPA, was it awkward trying to figure out what you wanted to do? I know we have a lot of new members who are like, maybe I don't have enough experience to get involved yet.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Because, you have those fears. What do I have to offer? I just graduated. I just landed a job in dermatology. I'm still trying to just learn the basics of derm.
Trying not to kill somebody.
Exactly. And here I am, like, the thought comes into your mind, like, I'm not prepared to do this. Who am I to even think I can do this? Those kind of imposter syndrome questions pop into your head.
Yeah. But like you said, the leadership committee heads, like everybody is sort of like a big sister, big brother, mentor. Was that your experience?
Oh, 100%. All of them had similar experiences as I did. And so they were able to walk me through. They were able to say, we were in your shoes and look where we are 10 years later. Yeah. And having that kind of role model, not only in one person, but in a whole group, was honestly life-changing and career transforming.
Yeah. Well, at that time, did you know you wanted to be president of SDPA one day?
No. Are you kidding me? Like, I looked at whoever the president was at the time, like, wow, that is just such a remarkable honor and accomplishment, and, great for them. And I'm here to support whoever is the president. Never in my wildest dreams. Never. Not once.
So how did that happen?
So, I'm very blessed in that the people who I happen to find myself being surrounded by see potential in me that I don't recognize in myself.
Yeah.
And they speak words of affirmation, encouragement, and call things out of me that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And they help develop those skill sets. I mean, 10 years ago, being president was not even a thought, right?
Yeah.
And so they start planting those seeds in your head, like they see what you have, and then over the years, they'll give you more projects. They'll say, maybe it's time for you to step out of this role, and have you ever considered being on the board?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I've never considered being on the board. That's a lot. So they slowly developed me.
And I know you have young kids, so what was it like for those of us who are like, I have children, I have a full-time job, I have a spouse, like how am I gonna do all this?
When you're in it, you just do the next thing. But I find that when you're sitting back and you're like, okay, I have a family, I have all this going on, how am I going to do this thing? Start small. Yeah. Start small, because oftentimes I know I'm guilty of this. I'm like, okay, I need to be membership committee chair versus membership committee member, right? Yeah. So like if you start with those small, what's the saying? Like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So you literally just do the next small thing. Yeah. And then before you know it, you realize like, oh, I'm here in this place.
Yeah. And see how it feels. You may say, this is not for me.
Exactly. Let's say you join a committee and you decide, oh no, I am not supposed to be in that committee. Like, legislation is not my cup of tea. Great. You can just back right out and go somewhere else. Find what works for you.
Yeah. Okay, so then you became president.
Yes.
And that was 2020.
So I was just talking about this with another colleague. When you run for president, you run really 2 years before you're actually president, right?
Okay.
So you're president-elect, then you're president, and then you're immediate past president. It's a 3-year term.
Yeah.
So no one knew the pandemic was going to happen.
Yeah.
When I ran, had no idea what was about to unfold 2 years later. And then there we were in the thick of 2020. Gina had just finished her term, and we were right there in the beginning of the pandemic when I took over.
Yeah. So how do you think that altered your time as president?
I mean, it changed everything.
Yeah.
We literally had to write a new chapter for the society. We had to change the entire playbook as we knew it was out the window. And that year just made me so grateful for our board members, our committee chairs, our committee members, because we had to find innovative, creative ways to connect and make sure that the organization and our members had the education they needed. I mean, we were getting calls like, you guys are canceling this conference, how am I gonna get the CME? So we had to know how to pivot very quickly onto a fully online platform, because our members needed their CME and they looked to SDPA to fulfill that.
Yeah.
So it was a very challenging year for sure. It was growth that I could have never prepared for.
Yeah.
Never could have prepared for. But I mean, who really can prepare for growth, right?
That's true. Yeah, so you were working full time.
I was working full time. I had just had a baby, my second, right before the delivery rooms had closed. So I had delivered her 6 weeks before they closed the delivery rooms for spouses, and was in the thick of the pandemic.
Wow, Archana, that's crazy.
Yeah, was in the thick of the pandemic, leading this organization, and at a new practice. So there was a lot of change in a very short period of time.
Yeah, and I know you and I have talked about burnout before and how like a lot of us experienced that during the pandemic. Do you mind sharing some of your story?
Yeah, so I'm practicing Dermcast.live for over a decade and really love dermatology and the work, but it was the perfect storm, Hope. It was having a new baby, it was being president of the SDPA, it was being in a new practice environment and getting accustomed to new patients that really started my wheels further churning on what's next for me.
Yeah.
I knew that I needed to step away from clinical practice to pursue something else. And I had known that for a few years, but was never prepared to take the leap because I was comfortable. Practice is what I know, it's my default, it's where I shine. So why would I walk away from that, right? I had to be so uncomfortable where I was before I could honestly push myself out.
That is so true. What is it costing you to stay in this comfort zone and not push yourself to grow?
Yes, exactly. And I think all of us can say there were moments or there was a specific moment that you knew it was time to walk away for the time being, at least. For me, I love treating acne patients. Acne patients are like my forte. I struggled with acne as a teenager, so I could really relate.
Yeah.
Like, I just light up. Everyone's like, oh, send Archana all the acne patients. Because it's so gratifying, right? It is so gratifying to see that teenagers, adults, the people they are when their acne is cleared are different than who walked in initially.
That's
right?
true.
So it's it's honestly such a ego boost to be able to say that you had a hand in the way that they present themselves now, right? And so I remember being in clinic in my MA, like I was just wrote okay, here's what we're going to do. Very matter of fact, great, have a great day. We'll see you next week. To anybody else, great visit. You did your job. They look great. My MA pulled me aside and said, what's going on?
Yeah.
You don't have the zeal or the enthusiasm that you always had. And I knew that I had recognized it in myself, but now for someone close to me to recognize it, I was like, it's time to step away.
Yeah. Did you have physical symptoms also? Like a lot of times our bodies will sort of let us know what's going on.
You know, that is such a unique question, Hope. When I look back, I think I was more so just tired, right? Just walking into clinic, getting the day started and just being exhausted before it even started.
Yeah.
And seeing like, okay, when does my day end? When's my break? When I was looking forward to the few moments of like free time, I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hear a lot about depletion, like you don't have anything left over for your family.
Yeah, like when you're already have an empty cup, you have nothing to pour onto other people.
Yeah.
You know, when you're already on empty. And I think just talking with colleagues throughout the pandemic and connecting with members, so many of us are scared to admit it. You know, so many of us are scared. Burnout is like, when you say burnout, people don't even recognize what that means. It's just like cliche now. Oh, you're burnt out, you're burnt out. But so many of us are experiencing it and either A, are scared to talk about it, because if you talk about it, then that means that, hey, you need to actually do something about it, or you need to recognize you're not doing something about it.
Yeah.
So it's easier just to not talk about it.
Yeah, not doing something is a decision.
Yes, 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 nail on the head right there.
So what did it take for you to, like how long did it take for you to finally say, okay, I recognize I'm burned out and I need to pivot?
So I recognized I was burnt out, and I would say, again, I mean, life is just, opportunities have just surrounded themselves for me. I'm so grateful for that because I already had that mindset, like I know I need to look for whatever's next, but the opportunity just presented itself. And
you opened yourself to possibility.
Yes.
And possibility appeared.
I love that, Hope. It was, yes, recognizing that this is where I am and just being open to the conversation.
Yeah.
Before walking in the Dermcast studio, I just had a conversation about so much of life is happening in front of us, but we are so zoned out to even recognize it. And I was finally just present for the conversation.
I love that. So you transitioned to become a medical science liaison.
Yes, yes. So the opportunity presented itself through a great colleague friend of mine who I just happened to be out to lunch with, just talking about, just dermatology, just having a conversation about patients. And I said, I just don't know what's next for me, but I feel like there's something that I have to do. That's coming that I need to move forward in, but I'm not sure what's next.
Yeah.
And so it was just very vague, nothing about like being an MSL or transitioning into industry. Like that was the most furthest thing from my mind. I was actually on the PhD track. I was looking into PhD programs for translational science and really considering going into more research.
Yeah.
And again, going into research for I don't know what. Like I just always get these inclinations like I need to prep for what's coming next, but I don't actually know what's next. And so, so conversation was done. The next day he calls me and he's like, hey, so have you ever thought about industry? Have you ever thought about, what else there is for you? And what I loved about him was that he was like, he opened my mind to an idea that I had never allowed myself to see, which is you can try something out.
Yes.
And then you can also decide that's not for you and go back to whatever you loved.
I love that.
Because so often I feel like we think if we change careers or positions that it's a one and done deal.
Yes.
Like you can never go back, but just having the grace to be like, okay, I tried it.
Yeah.
I didn't really like it. I want to do X, Y, and Z. That gave me so much reassurance to take that next step.
It is, it's your next right step. It's not necessarily your path forever.
Yes, your next right step. Yeah.
All right, so that was how many years ago?
A year and a half, not that long ago.
Yeah.
We're right on the heels of that. Yeah.
So how is life different now that you're out of the clinic and working as an MSL?
So initially, I just sat in my home office waiting for phone calls, emails, and like the concept of being able to work remotely, I did not get. Because I was ball and chain to my clinic.
Yes.
And so then, of course, my colleagues are like, you're actually supposed to be going out and meeting with people and doing things, and you can actually take your work on the road. And so it just opened my mind to a whole new world of possibilities. I am able to have some of the most fascinating conversations with, honestly, the world's best dermatologists.
Yes.
And Hope, we talked a little bit earlier about imposter syndrome, but I do want to touch on that. I will tell you, being SDPA president, you think that person has so much confidence, and you think like, wow, they can lead the largest specialty organization for PAs. They are doing the thing. They have so
she's
much.
Killing it.
Yes, right? I got into this role and I had to meet with a world-renowned dermatologist, and I literally became a shell of myself. Because it was like, who am I to have a conversation with this person?
Yeah.
And why would they even want to hear what I have to say? And so I want to touch on that because I think people often have this perception that if you're in a position, you're always confident. No, it's just honestly taking one fearful step at a time and getting to the other side of it.
Yeah, courage is a muscle, and you really do have to build it up.
Yes, yeah, and the more you put yourself out there and the more you have those out of comfort zone conversations, the more that you actually build that confidence.
Yes.
And
even
so,
at these conferences, like having a conversation with somebody who's you don't know, like it's scary and
yeah, it's out of our comfort zone for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So what did you do during that conversation to like?
Oh, it was horrible. It was, let me tell you, I fell flat on my face, Hope, flat on my face. It was a horrible conversation. But it taught me so much because I survived it. And I learned for the next time, and it took several next times, to be quite frank with you, for me to come to the table and be like, hey, I'm Archana. I used to be a practicing derm PA. I'm here now. Would love to hear your thoughts on X, Y, and Z. When you walk in with knowing who you are, that person automatically respects you.
Yeah.
Versus me walking in head down, I'm a derm PA.
Right.
It's a game changer.
Yeah. Any final words of advice for people who are like several steps behind where you are?
My biggest piece of advice would be take the next right step.
Okay.
Take the next right step, whatever that may be for you, and know that you can always go back, but you'll never know unless you go forward.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Archana.
You're welcome, Hope. Always a pleasure to see you.
You too. Hope Cook signing off with Dermcast TV.